Hello friends, this is Morgan Crooks, and I'm back here with a training video with Bella. So today we're going to be working on training Bella to the tarp. The overall goal of this is to help get the tarp on Bella's back and to have her calmly being able to walk over it. So we start here with some systematic desensitization. So the idea here is I need to absorb and see how Bella actually will react to the tarp. We're talking about an object that is a different color, B very large, and C is just overall very noisy. It's not something that's very natural to her environment. And so this video is really neat. It kind of shows how Bella's very abrasive to walking over it. And so when I move into my actual training, I'm going to start really with just leading her over the tarp. I want her to learn forward motion with it. I want her to be able to stand on it calmly as it moves around her. And we did this a lot more times, but just for the sake of this video, you're going to see a lot of sped up footage, you're going to see a lot of cutout footage, and overall, I'm just going to talk about the highlights of all those training methods. So as you can see, it's really windy here. And I was really trying to hammer in for Bella just to get used to going over the tarp as it moves around a little bit and just to see how she reacts. She's not very overly afraid about it on the ground. She's very ears forward, ears back, looking around. Not necessarily wide-eyed, but a little tight in the mouth, I would say. And so because of that, I decided to start with approach conditioning. Now, this is a method of really using the horse's own curiosity and getting them to follow objects and to engage and create positive experiences. So here I am. Just kind of walking Bella, moving the tarp, having her approach it, having her sniff it and touch it, and then rewarding her. So I have a bunch of cookies in my pocket, and you'll see me pull them out from time to time, but here Bella's doing a really good job. So then we're going to move on to some stimulus blending actually. So this idea is that we take an object that she knows, such as the brush in this example, and then we're going to introduce it with the tarp. So here I'm just starting off with the brush. You can see she's standing really calmly despite me moving that tarp around to the right of her. And then what I'm going to slowly do is start moving a little bit more frequently, a little bit more loudly, and then I'm actually going to start touching her. So there I'm touching her shoulder, and you see she actually kind of perks up, and you're actually going to see some really interesting behavior from Bella. She's not necessarily deathly afraid of the tarp, but she's actually much more aggressive towards it. She actually bites it to the point she almost bites me several times throughout this video, and you'll see me actually address that. But she is a very oral, very physical horse, and the overall goal of this video was to really get her to not be so aggressive towards the tarp, especially in the sense that down the road, if you have a rider going to get on her, you don't want her trying to bite them. That's just going to create a lot of consequences down the road. So I really like doing this exercise with her and training her to really stand for the tarp, to stand for it moving around her and all that stuff. So again, she's kind of not really wanting to pay attention. She's very curious and looking around, but you can really see how tight she is in her nostrils. She's not a very spooky horse. She's not very fearful, but you can really tell just from her behavior about how she is about things that are out of her control and new things especially. She would happily sit in the pasture for years, but this entire project was to get her out and to really train her to be a better horse for when I do leave and end up not, taking her with me as she's not my horse. And so I really like using the stimulus blending exercise. I could have used response prevention if I had had another person. So the idea was to overdrive Bella's more aggressive behavior towards the tarp and make her concentrate on one thing rather than the tarp itself. But by doing stimulus blending, she gets really used to two things kind of at once. Grooming, which is a positive because she really likes the grooming, the physical contact, and cookies, of course, rather than having so much going around her that she can't concentrate on it. So here, I was doing a lot of that stimulus blending, allowing her to kind of get a look and feel for it, and she physically relaxed. You can really see it in her shoulders and her mouth, all that licking and chewing. And one thing you're going to see me do personally about all this is I'm really trying not to use negative reinforcement, really. I don't want to have to take away something to really reinforce her. I'm much more about positive reinforcement, but you will actually see me use it quite a few times in this video, and the idea that if she steps back, I don't want her to do that, so I'm going to move the tarp off and then move her forward and reintroduce it. And then once she steps forward with the tarp, rather than stepping back or getting really oral with it, then I reward her with a cookie. So there's going to be quite a few exchange here as I'm figuring out her cues, because I did not realize going into this project how aggressive she actually would be with the tart. So here we're taking a break. This is just a few hours later after I turned her out to groom for a few hours. And here she's just kind of free reined, letting her follow me around and walk on the tarp again, doing something different. As we know, horses can only learn something for so long in a set period of time, and they need breaks every, couple of times. And you only have an 8-second window to really reward them to help them learn something. So the entire goal of this little segment that I decided to go ahead and throw in was to show you like just some more free range of Bella working with the tarp and going over some things that we had gone over previously. It's a lot of repetition. This is a lot of approach conditioning and then moving away from the stimulus blending and just actually putting my hands on her with just the tarp. And so now we're going back to the actual training session. And again, I stopped doing the stimulus blending, and you can see she's much more relaxed with the tarp than at the beginning of the video. She is still pretty mouthy, but more in the sense of not trying to bite it, but looking for cookies, which I would rather take than her trying to bite and fight with the tarp. But she's really, really brave while I'm over here struggling to get the tarp over her back. And so the purpose of this part is to teach her that it can be above her while I'm off to the side of her. I know here she steps back, so I'm going to move it off and I'm going to move her forward. And the overall purpose is that to teach her that I don't want her reeling back, because that can turn into a really dangerous habit, especially if it's like there's something new I don't like, I'm going to go back and then it's going to fly and then things are going to get chaotic. There, she tried to bite me. I reinforced, no, don't do that, with some negative punishment, and she instantly looked around, was doing other things. And so I'm gonna wait here. I'm gonna wait for her to put her attention back on me. She's doing a little bit of displacement behavior. You can see there her nostrils are getting big. She's not blinking at all, and that's a really big sign. So once she relaxes, I drop it. I reward her physical contact and just grooming and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to speed it up again. Again, we're just reinforcing the idea of I'd rather you step forward, and there she did. So she stepped forward with the tarp, which was really good, and I took it off and I gave her just a little short break. So here we're going to go play with the pole. She got some little mutual grooming going on, and just overall just kind of trying to take tiny breaks between all this, because there is a lot going on. We got the goats over there, we got all this stuff in the arena, and then we got this massive tarp that I'm trying to throw around her and failing very, very much at. So a lot of this I had to add steps because Bella overall wasn't so much fearful of the tarp as she was aggressive, as I've mentioned multiple times. So a lot of going back and forth and then having to have discussion points about holding still or about moving forward with it, and just a lot of repetition that wasn't in this video, again, for the sake of time. Overall, I had about 30 minutes of footage that I got down to 11, so there was that. But overall, I was really impressed with Bella, and here we got to the point where we were getting the tarp on her, and now we're going to lead with it. And it actually fell out the first time, so I had to redo that. And overall, just had to balance it on her back, and you can see her just really like looking around, trying to see what's going on, but she's being really, really good about it. And so that was a really good reaction. She stood really well, ears forward, all that stuff. So we're going to walk over it, be like, okay, here it is, we're all good with it. And you see her really looking at it and being like, what's going on? So I gotten rid of the lead rope right here because I was going to move it back in front of the screen and fold it up. But I really like showing this because you can see how she's very like curious about it now. Like before she was, during the approach conditioning, she was almost trying to walk in front of me and not in front of it. She was trying to put distance between herself and it. And now she sees that as a reward, because when she interacts with it, it usually in one way or another can get her cookies. And so that was something that she really learned. And you can see here just like how relaxed she is. Before, she was really, really biting at it, and there she was just kind of like, okay, we're good now. So I get the tarp over her, and then we're actually getting towards the end now, which is really, really awesome. She's doing so good with it. And I get it over her shoulders and just kind of lead her just a little bit. We're taking it really, really slowly because we're using more operant conditioning. We're introducing something that naturally she wouldn't have to do, and something that she's never really had to do before. Because Bella's lived out in the pasture most of her life, a lot of what I've been doing with her this semester has been new. So we have created a really good relationship in the sense that she trusts me. And she often will look to you for leadership, and that's something horses will do in general. They're very interactive animals. They need someone to lead them. And here you can see she's starting to get pretty pushy with me, so we had a little discussion about that. And then we're gonna go back and do it again. So overall, we did this several times, and I do wish we had a little bit more time. So I managed to get the tarp around her shoulders, and we walk around, lunge around quite a bit, and she does really, really good. The only other things I would really like to work on with her is getting it more around her head and unfolding it more and getting it all the way around her and walking her that way. The more I can do with her, the more safer she will be in the future. And that was really, really the goal of this, because Bella, overall, she's not a very fearful horse, but she is very, very demanding of her own personal space. And she has a way of being very pushy about her boundaries and not very considerate of yours throughout, as you saw throughout this video, especially when she was more or less trying to bite me than the tarp. So overall, at the end of it, she was very, very mindful. I was really, really proud of her and how well she did. She's walking very calmly, ears forward. She's not really doing any more displacement. She's very, very cooperative to what I'm doing, which is exactly what I wanted. You know, before with the tarp, she saw it more as something that had no positive interaction with her. And now she's just very much looking forward to having it on her and seeing what I want and what ways she can get rewarded for it, which I think is really important in the generalized horse training aspect of this. This entire class was really about teaching us how to train horses and how to understand them. You know, we can't say that they're experiencing human emotions and fears like we do. They see the world differently. And overall, it was a good project.